Welcome to Podcast for Fun. This is the show where we dive into the passion, the process, and the journeys of creative storytellers as they bring their stories to life. I'm your host, Sophia, and today we are joined by a talented writer, Dave Dwonch. Thank you so much for being here, Dave.
I am excited to be here. Good to see you, Sophia. How are you?
Doing good. So,
Good.
let's start with you telling us a little bit about yourself and your work.
Okay. Well, I've been working on comics since 2005. I mean, obviously, I had the passion when I was a little kid. My fondest memories are reading comics on my dad's lap. And so like knowing that that's where I came from and what inspired me. There's a really good story about how I met the editor-in-chief at Marvel, but we'll get to that maybe.
What?
But these things really inspired me to write comics for kids. So like about 50% of my stuff is all ages, and then about 50% of it's like rated R, and it's just to scratch both itches. But I have probably, I don't know, roughly, I want to say 15 to 20 titles that I've done over the last 20 years. I started a independent comic book publishing company back in 2010. And then when money came in and started taking control of the company and making it a bad company, I left, struck out on my own. And since then, I've been working on books for Titan Comics out of the UK, Dark Horse. I worked with Behemoth Sumerian. I worked as a letterer on an Image comic. I've done pretty much everything around the industry. The only thing I haven't done is work for Marvel or DC, which maybe in the future we'll see.
Mhm. So tell me, how did you meet the chief and editor that you said you
Okay, I was 12, and
12? That's a
um, well, I'd been collecting comics, right? Like my
okay.
entire life. And one of my favorite comics was Captain America. So I went to WonderCon when it was in Oakland, and I went to his table, the writer of Captain America at the time. And so I brought him a book to for him to sign. And he opens the first page and he's going to sign on the inside. And there's like some gunk on there, like it was a misprint. It was all on like newsprint, so like really bad paper quality back then. And he looks at it and he's like, "Oh, this shouldn't look like this." And he's like, and he turns to his assistant and he says, "I need you to find a replacement for this kid. At Marvel Comics, we don't do it this way." Which I thought was a weird comment for the writer of this comic book to be like, "Find this kid a replacement." So I'm a shy 12-year-old kid. I just had the courage to go talk to this writer,
Mm.
and he sends his assistant off, who's like super pissed that he has to go do this. He's like, "Why?"
Yeah.
And then he's like, "Because at Marvel we don't do this. Go do it." And the kid's like, "Are you serious?" He's like, "I'm dead serious." So the kid leaves, and I'm standing there like awkward, like I don't know what to do. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Am I supposed to leave and come back? Is this comic going to come back? Or like, what's going to happen here? So I'm standing there, and his name is Mark Grunwald, who I didn't realize at the time was writing Captain America. He had written Squadron Supreme, which is like one of my all-time favorite comics, and he was the editor-in-chief at Marvel. And so he looks at me, and I'm not leaving because I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I'm shy and awkward, and he's like, "What do you want to do with your life?" And I was like, "I think I want to work in comics." And he's like, "Well, then while we're waiting for your comic, why don't you come back behind the table and I'll tell you everything I know about comic books." And I was like, my favorite writer is going to tell me everything that I need to know about writing comic books, right? So I'm super jazzed. I'm like, okay, cool. So he tells me all about panel progression, word balloons, action placement, left to right, down, all of the little nuances that as a, it was pretty, I don't want to say it was basic, but for a kid that didn't know any better, it was the like someone opening the Holy Grail and you reading from it. Yeah, you're just like, or
Yeah.
not, the Holy Grail is a cup. It's like reading from the first Bible. You're like, what is this, right? Um, and so I left. Oh, and then the kid comes back and um he has a replacement copy. So Mark signs both and he says, "I'll hope to see you soon." And I go off on my merry way. Years later, I realized he's the editor-in-chief of Marvel, which like shocked the hell out of me. I was like, why would that guy make time for me? Like,
Mhm.
that's a weird thing to do, right? Like, I don't think the editor-in-chief of Marvel is sitting down 12-year-old kids to tell them everything about comics today. And I was on a panel like 2 years ago, and the guy next to me, um, it was like creating comics 101. And it was all a bunch of old farts like me, but like slightly older farts than me. And so the guy next to me is like, "What year was that?" I was like, "1989." He was like, "I was Mark's assistant. I know it was 1988. He was like, that's crazy because I was Mark's assistant in 1989, and that sounds like exactly something Mark would do. And then we started talking about Mark Grunwald on this panel. We both
Mhm.
start crying. We're both like, this is the most emotional thing ever. After the panel, he and I hugged. Turns out that his booth is right next to my booth. I didn't even realize he was over there.
Mhm.
He was a creator of Ghost Rider. So I was like, so then his family comes over and they start telling me these stories about Mark and their Uncle Mark and how he used to come over every Thanksgiving and he was the sweetest guy. And I was like five, it wasn't 5 minutes. It was like more like an hour I was hanging out with this guy. But like in that hour, that's what I got from this guy. I was like, he's like a family guy. He's like super nice. He's very, very, he wants to cultivate the next generation. And so like, that's sort of what I do. Like I try to do.
Mhm.
So now if I see a kid with a sketchbook, I'm like, can I see the sketchbook? Can I give it to me? I want to give you advice, right? You're older and you've been doing, your own book. So I didn't have a lot to critique, right?
Yeah.
But if I'd met you 8 years ago, I would have said, come back behind the table and I'll tell you everything about comics. So that's the origin of like my comic book experience. It's just it's since been so personal to me. Like everything about it has been like living and breathing just comics. Yeah, the business sucks and it's a tough business to crack, and we all know that. And being an
Yeah.
artist is rough. Um, but if you're persistent and you're passionate and you're dedicated to your craft, there's nothing you can't do in comic books, you know?
Mhm.
And that's sort of what I geek out on, really. Now I've gotten to the point in my career where I felt like I used to have to produce like 2 or 3 books a year, or I was like irrelevant to the community or the cause. And now as I'm getting older, I'm like 1 book a year is that I really love and that can make people feel something is worth way more to me than 3 books just to justify my name on the cover of something, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree with you. I'd rather make something I like with quality than quantity.
Yes, absolutely. And I think the problem with that is essentially comic book creators are dreamers, right? And you can't stop dreaming. So like my phone is just full of like crazy ideas that I'll probably never do. And it's the ideas that rise to the top of the notes list or you
Mhm.
keep coming back to that you're like, okay, that's something that I can do, you know?
Mhm.
If there's so many dumb ideas in this phone, like I could recite some to you and you'd be like, no, that's not good, you know?
Now I
Um,
don't. Now I want to hear them. Like
oh man. Um, well, but now I've got to go into it. This is fun. Oh boy. Oh, erotic action thriller about a firefighter trapped in a building as it's being evacuated while a romance book convention is going on. So he's living it's a super meta, right? So all of these ladies are hot for the fireman because he's a hot fireman guy.
yeah.
So it's like almost a romance thing in this burning building where he's trying to get people out of it. I'm never going to do that. But it's a really funny, stupid idea. It's really like
Mhm.
ridiculous. And I think it would be really funny. Um, but yeah. Oh, maybe I'll do that one. Let's see. Geez. Oh, I've got a Daredevil versus Nightcrawler story in here. That's pretty rad. Um, wow. Oh, Illuminati story based on fast food. Like
What?
like the way that this country's food has been built, like Nabisco is a company that's been around since like the 1800s or whatever, right? Like
Mhm.
all these conglomerates that happened because we had war and starvation and poverty and all of this. So the need for cheap food established these mega corporations before anyone knew they were mega corporations. So the idea that potentially they could still be ruling the world, which isn't very far from where we're at with all of the mega corporations that we have, right? So
Mhm.
stuff like that, like I'm probably never going to do that, but it's a fun idea, right? Mark, we mentioned Mark Sable, you had him on the show. Uh, very, very thoughtful, very smart, very learned creator. And in your interview with him, he mentioned that you could I know creators that are high school dropouts that are doing comics. I know people that are professors that are doing comics. And then he drove home the point that like a lot of creators draw from their own personal lives and experiences to get stuff done, and that's exactly where I'm at. I can't say I was the best student,
Mhm.
but I'm a great student of life. And so that's what I try to put into my work, right? Like Mark's really good at researching the little details. I'm really good at dialing into what the emotional content of that information is. So completely different schools of thought, but I love talking to him about stuff like that because we're so different. And yet
Mhm.
back when we first came out, our first books were almost not identical books, but thematically the same. And so like you can come from one side of it and the other and still come up with the same thing, you know?
Yeah.
It's really interesting. It's fun.
I always feel like ideas are kind of a loop, you know? If you think about something completely opposite, it's actually quite similar to what is supposedly on
Oh,
the other side,
yeah.
right?
Oh, yeah, for sure. And that's the thing I think about society too is like if we could just find the middle, I think that this divide that everyone has put on us in this country could be solved with a few honest conversations where you listen to the other person and you empathize with their plight, right? Like
Mhm.
it's really easy to dismiss people as kooks. It's really easy, and some people are kooks. I'm not gonna like name names, but like you have to give your fellow man, your fellow human being the chance, right? Or we're just going to be stuck in this like cycle, right? Like I love having interesting conversations with people that are very different than me.
Mhm.
That's how you learn. That's the school of life.
That's kind of why I started this podcast, because as I spoke to more people who create comics or create stories, a lot of authors too, not just like comic creators, I
Yeah.
realized like, oh my God, these people are like by name doing the same thing, but the way they do it is completely different, and the way they think
Yeah.
about it is completely different, you know?
Well, and I used to, like I said earlier, it's like I used to think I needed to do 3 books a year and that was success, right? But that's not success. Like success is doing something that makes people feel something, and then they come to you and say, I felt this way
Hmm.
because of your book, right? I love when someone gives me a really crappy review. Like, I love that. I'm like, I wait, you hated it so much that you had to talk about it. You had to
Yeah,
tell
yeah,
me,
yeah.
you had to describe how much you hated it. That is not the goal, but the goal is to elicit some kind of reaction with your art. That's what art is, right?
Mhm.
So a bad review could be just as helpful or just as good as a good review. So yeah, I always try to put the worst review of my books on the back covers of all of my books, just because I love I love giving people props.
That's
Thanks for being there.
Mhm. What would you think is the one thing that like about you or like a personality trait or what you did action wise that helped you progress for your comics?
I mean, I well, okay. I think this is just my rule of life.
Mhm.
But I try to be unshakably optimistic. Like, if something didn't work, why didn't it work? How do I make it better? Okay, let's go. Get the energy level back up, right? Like, so many people stop after the first book because
Yeah.
they are like they put their heart and soul into it. But all that first book is a time capsule. Here's where I was at that moment. And I love that. But to say that my work hasn't gotten better over the 20 years I've been doing it, to be able to look back and be like, dude, I love this. I still love it. Or, ooh, I hate it. Oh, how do I get better? How do I get better? Like, what do I do? I think it's just the desire. I tell people all the time at conventions, like when I'm on panels, these like starting in comics thing. I'm doing one at Fan Expo next week or this
Mhm.
week. Um, excuse me. It's that you're beating your head up against a wall and your head's going to break or the wall's going to break. Which is it? If you don't know the answer to that, then you should probably get out of comics. You really should say the wall's going to break before my head breaks. Flat out. That's optimistic, right?
Mhm.
So that's where I'm at with that.
That sounds like more like persistence than head-breaking, in my opinion. Like, nah, I can still keep going. And
Well,
then you
during COVID it was fun too because excuse me, I'm getting over a cold. I didn't know if I was going to make it with you today, but glad I did. So, um, like during COVID, what
Mhm.
helped me? I just started emailing editors. I was like, they're people like me. They're trapped in their apartment. At one point, pencils were down at all of the major companies. And then I was like, oh, pencils are down? No one's doing anything. No one's editing. Everyone's just sitting on their asses. And I was like, put me in, coach. So I just started emailing a bunch of publishers with the
Mhm.
book I was working on. And within like 5 minutes, I got accepted.
What?
So it's
Huh.
that could be unfair because I've already had a big body of work, and so certain people know who I am. Not a lot, but certain people do. So it's a little easier for me to get in there and say, "Hey, I have a book at Dark Horse. Want to check out my latest book?" Or, "Hey, I worked on this book, at Titan. Here are some reviews. Would you like to see my next thing?"
Yeah,
And
yeah.
Titan's been absolutely lovely. I think that when you find a home, like a comfortable situation with a publisher, go all in. Just show them everything that you're working on. Become partners. That's what comic books are. It's a community, it's a partnership, it's a friendship.
Mhm.
Um, and I would love to get all my books published to Titan. Like every single one. They're just lovely people. And the idea that potentially I have a body of work at a publisher in another country means I could go to that country and visit and stay longer and enjoy their culture and do conventions there, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, honestly, everyone attacks it in a different way, but the only way that you can really get in with publishers is to check your ego at the door, come with no expectations, come with confidence.
Yeah.
But don't come in thinking that your book is the best book on the planet and that it's going to change everyone's lives, instantly. That's just
Mhm.
not the way things go, especially today where we have so much entertainment. Like, I don't even know what to watch on TV anymore. There's just too much, you know?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I feel you. I feel about my podcast too, because like there's like a gajillion podcasts out there. Like at first when I started, I was like, is it really gonna affect anything if I start my own? But I think it's doing pretty good. So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I saw you've got plenty of subscribers, and your views are climbing, and
mhm.
it's just something that you continue to do because you love to do it, right? I mean, it's just, you're an artist, like you wouldn't do it unless you loved it.
Mm-mm. No
No,
way. I
no
wouldn't be
way.
able. I love talking to people. I love getting to know people. So this is like kind of my excuse to talk to people and talk about movies and comics because I'm a nerd.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I mean, totally. And that's the thing. You'll never know unless you ask. You're never going to learn unless you're inquisitive. Like I could tell just by meeting you at that con that you were an inquisitive person. And I think that that's going to inform your artwork in a great way. Like
yeah.
how can I get better? How can I make this better? Um, like the webtoon thing is something that I still have to wrap my head around because I'm a printed book kind of guy. I want
Yeah.
everything to be in a collection, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I want it to read left to right. So the webtoon thing doesn't really work for me, but like if you can reformat it for one or the other, then that's the way you do it. But I think that you'd re-letter it twice, or you'd
Mhm.
letter it twice, right? Because the lettering is going to be larger on the webtoon and less so in the comic book, and then you've got to put your
Yeah.
panels
Yeah.
into stitch it together or what have you. So like that sort of forward thinking and energy I just don't have yet. I got to figure out how to make the infinite scroll of a comic book work. But yeah, I mean, I started out as a webcomic person because I just wanted to get stuff out there and do it myself. I started out as an artist and then realized I just wanted to tell stories. And I was like, oh, that's the only reason I draw. Oh man, like I don't need to draw. I can just write. And that's how I became a writer. And most people don't remember that I could draw. And there used to be this stigmatism about an artist becoming a writer.
Mhm.
You were either one or the other. You were never a writer or artist unless you were like Frank Miller. You know what I mean? Like you weren't that person back when I was a kid.
Mhm.
And a lot of people will probably argue that's not true. You could say Jim Starlin and all of these like there's a handful of 70s dudes that did it. But like the creator, the comic creator, really didn't become the comic creator until like Image. And that's when like they got their identities and everyone said, "Oh wait, this 16-year-old kid named Rob Liefeld did New Mutants and now he's doing his own thing over there. I could do that too."
Mhm.
And that's how that started. You know.
Do you feel that your optimism comes from a lesson you learned as a creator?
No, I think that I'm a complete sociopath. No, I think
What?
that I think that I I tell my wife this all the time. It's like if something's out of your control, then let it be out of your control. You can't stress about the things you can't control. And spoilers, really can't control anything, you know? So like if you abandon that and you say, well, how do I strive to make it better? Like I can't fix everything. I can't be everything to everyone. And when you're younger, you do want to do that. You want to be everything to everyone. You want to be like popular and all that other crap. It's like no, I think that just being able to compartmentalize my grief and my anger and my pain and my disappointment into something that's small that I can channel into something good, that just comes from life, Like my uncle,
Mhm.
my Uncle Joe. I based one of my characters on my recent graphic novel called The Automaton on him. It was like a Disney murder mystery thing, and he was my Walt Disney character. But
Mhm.
I'm half Italian and half Filipino. He was closeted homosexual,
Oh,
and
yeah, you told me. I think you told me at the con. I
yeah,
remember.
yeah, it's rough because like everyone else wanted me to be an engineer. I'm really good. I'm like right and left brain. I'm really good at math and science and everything. And then I'm really good at
I'm
the
not.
creative stuff. Oh no? But you're
I
Asian like
suck.
me. Come on.
I know, but I suck at math. I was good at I was like kind of good at it, but I remember never enjoying it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, my parents, well, so my parents didn't want me to go to art school. But my uncle was closeted and living a whole secret life. And he was the only person in my family that was like, you should follow your dreams. You should do whatever you want because I can't. And he came out to me. And I was like young, I was probably 14 when he came out to me, maybe 15. Um, and then he wound up passing away of HIV. And then the family then realized that he was gay. And, there were certain camps that were like, he deserved what he got because he was gay. I mean, that's the craziest way to cope with the death of someone you love is to be like, they deserved it. You know what I mean? Like, and I was like, screw this. I'm just going to be an artist. Like I need to live up to my own expectations of myself. There shouldn't be anyone's expectations. And like, I love my Uncle Joe in his final lesson was do what you want and live the way you want to live and die the way you want to die. That's not for anyone else to judge you on.
Mhm.
And so I was like, well, screw it then. I'm just going to be a comic book creator. And that doesn't mean I don't have a day job where I'm very math based, but I get to the chance to do both, and that's kind of fun. You know, I do feel that there is something to be said about getting talented enough to say, cut the cord. I'm just going to be a freelance artist. I'm just going to do this and I'm going to quit my day job. I have several friends that did that and they didn't get the success that they got until after they quit their job and they focused 100% on the craft of comics, right?
Yeah.
I didn't do that. And that might actually probably speak to why I'm at a certain level and not as high, but I also don't care because I get to make the things that I want to make.
Yeah.
And I get to like have an action figure of my own frigging,
Oh my God, it's so cool.
creation. It's pretty cool. Um, and obviously you can tell that I love comics. That's just never going to go away. I'm still going to be that little kid that sat on my dad's lap, like at 52 this year. So yeah, I don't know. I feel young. I don't feel like we talked about it. You joked. You were like, "Oh, you're the same age as my dad." I was like, "Cool." But there's an energy to comics that keep you like youthful.
Mhm.
There's something about it. I love it.
Do you feel like if you could, you'd quit your day job and go full career creator?
So I don't know. When I was 40, I had heart surgery, and having the healthcare in place to not worry about that at all was very beyond comforting, you know?
Mhm.
Like my wife is thinking about, oh, maybe okay, I probably shouldn't even tell anyone what she does or what she wants to do, but she's thinking about starting her own business. And if she does do something like that, then her healthcare goes away, and then it would be on me, right? The only way to
Yeah.
get healthcare in comics, I think I wouldn't even know. You'd have to ask someone that's exclusive at Marvel or DC, but they probably get healthcare through that, you
Mhm.
know. But then you're stuck just doing Marvel and DC comics, and that doesn't sound all that fun anymore. It used to sound fun.
Yeah.
It doesn't sound that fun anymore, you know.
So is healthcare the only thing stopping you from being a full-time creator?
Well, that and I would have, well, yeah, I think so. And here's the other thing though, is if you're successful enough, you could just afford your own healthcare, I guess,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, yeah, yeah. So I mean, I think it's probably just the fear because I've had so many health issues of like taking that leap. Um, and honestly, like right now, the other thing is my wife like makes a pretty good paycheck. I want to at least be able to provide as much as she does because it's for me it's like a 50-50 partnership. And
Yeah.
so I want to make sure that I contribute as much. And I know that people could contribute in different ways. I could do the dishes all day. I could just rub her feet all day. Like whatever it could be. But
Mhm.
like bottom line is like we've gotten a little like comfortable in the way we live and I want to continue to live that way.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but she wants to start her own business, and I'm like, go do it. Go do it. I'll stay doing what I'm doing as long as I possibly can,
Mhm.
um, and let you do that. I don't know if my wife would even consider that. You know what I mean? Like we're just different people in that way, you know?
Mhm.
So yeah.
Do you feel that if your family didn't say that about your uncle, you wouldn't have chosen to be an artist?
Well, at age 14, I had already been drawing, right? I was drawing for fun and I loved it. And, it was great. I think I've been drawing since I was 8, maybe probably something like that.
Me too.
Not good stuff. Not it was terrible. How was yours? Were your sure good?
I was actually one of like considered a good artist, you know? I mean,
Yeah.
I drew this when I was like 16, so I think I was
Whoa.
pretty decent.
Yeah, I mean that's awesome, dude. Yeah, I would I don't know. I couldn't tell you. There have been plenty of times when I thought I would quit too.
Hmm.
And I just was like, why would I do that? That's insane. I was married previously, and my first wife, like, it wasn't right, like when it's going the wrong direction in a relationship. And at one point she said, well, when we have kids, you're gonna have to stop doing this comic crap. And I was all, whoa, like I think we're breaking up. Like, there's no way that you could tell someone to not follow their dreams. It's like the exact opposite of what you should be doing as a partner, right? It's not
Hmm.
like I said I want to be an opera singer. You know what I mean? It's not like or a doctor at 40. You know what I mean? Like, there shouldn't have been any of that conversation. That power dynamic just didn't work, right? Um, but yeah, I mean, I think that I would, if my uncle wasn't so super supportive, if my parents didn't finally allow me to go to art school, then I probably would have quit. But that's like sliding doors. Like I have no idea if that's true or not. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, like you've seen my energy, so I don't know if that's true. You know, but I do know that talent is squandered on the young. I do know that if I had focused a little bit more when I was younger, I'd be in a better position. Like I didn't get into comics. I mean, if it's 20 years ago,
Mhm.
my first published work was when I was 32. And I think bringing Mark Sable back into it, I think he
Yeah.
was 30 when his first book came out. So it's like, yeah, I probably should have started earlier or tried harder back then because I had way more energy, way more free time. I was living with my parents, so why didn't I
Yeah.
just do that?
Yeah.
It's because I was partying and hanging out with my friends. Um, and then along the way, there were friends that um, cultivated that too. Like I found a bunch of artists that became best friends and roommates and everything through my life. And like my first official convention that I tabled at, I was 15. Um, me and my friends, like we had one friend that was 16 and the rest of us were 15, and he would drive us to conventions. And then we went to a convention and I was like, how much are these tables? And they were like $75. And I was like, guys, why don't we just put our money together, get two tables for 150 bucks, and we could just be drawing for people. So we would sit there and just like as little kids draw comics for people. Um, and everyone hated us. Everyone thought we were trash, and they would talk crap about us. And all it did was give me thick skin. Like, I think that's why I like
Rejection.
bad review, you know?
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
so crazy, but people still bought it, right?
Well, some people did. Other people were like, why are you here? You know, my best friend Grant, who was one of those people, passed away last year. And I was digging through my stuff, and just as a reminder, I have the first comic he ever drew from when he was a little kid. And I bagged and boarded it. It's stapled. And it's his art. And it just sits here as a reminder with Daredevil that we did this when we were kids. And he passed of cancer last year. So like it's been a real rough road and a lot of tears and a lot of like, you know, why would that happen to such a good guy? Um, but yeah, I mean honestly, he's with me all the time. When I'm writing, I can just look back there and I'm like, oh, there's that first comic that Grant did. It's pretty rad, you know.
Mhm.
Um, and I love that. I love that. And my other friend John still draws, still paints, doesn't do comics because comics are hard. Um, Comics are harder than painting. I'll say that right now. Like you can spend a month on a painting, but spend a month drawing 350 drawings of the same character.
Yeah,
You know
yeah,
what
yeah,
I mean?
yeah.
Like it's different, you know? It's a discipline to make a comic book. Um, Not to say it's not a discipline to paint. Anyone that is watching this, if this doesn't get edited out, you probably shouldn't edit it out. Let them talk crap. No, I love a bad review, but it's just a different vibe. It's a different pressure cooker that you put yourself in, you know?
Hmm. I feel like comics is like 100 paintings for me because I always like try to render them very nicely. So I'm just
Yep.
painting like 100 times in a day, and I've gotten so fast with it. It feels so weird. No.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, and that's like I'm all about efficiencies. I'm all about how do I convey a thought as quickly as possible on a panel? Um, how can I compress these epic stories into 24 pages? How do I imbue it with enough personality and enough emotion that someone's going to leave closing a book that they probably read while they were on the toilet and think that was a good thing in my life?
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
really, yeah, I hate that comics don't get elevated as an art form and it's disposable media.
Hmm.
Once you read a comic book, it just goes into a box. You know, that's kind of why I've got all these comics around my office, just to remind me of the history of it all, just to remember where I was when I bought those comics, because I've been collecting comics since I was like 8, you know?
Hmm.
So I was a kind of a hoarder and I kept everything from when I was a kid. And so it's just like these posters and stuff. I mean, they're like 30 or 40 years old. And
Dang.
and I just have had them. And now I've got an office that when I get into it, it transports me to a place where I get to work on stuff, you know? That's
Hmm.
pretty fun. I mean, I don't know. I'm a nerd. I'm a super nerd. I think that you
I
know
get
that.
that. Why do you think comics resonates with you so much?
Um, well, I mean, I would be lying if it wasn't the fact that it was something that my brother and I used to do all the time together. We used to
Hmm.
go to the 7-Eleven, look at the spinner rack, pick out a book, 75 cents, go subscribe to some comics. Some of those cartoons that we were watching when we were kids, Thundercats, Transformers, all that stuff, they started making comics. We got into that. Um, I know consciously which comic I bought for myself. Um, with my own money, X-Men 204.
Hmm.
I just know all of, and then, honestly, my dad passed away last year too. And the only thing we agreed on was comics. Like sitting on his lap and reading comics with him. Like we lived in California and he had to move to New York for work for like th 2 or 3 years. He'd come back every other weekend and he'd just bring a stack of comics and we'd read them together. Um, but then you get into creating comics, and then it's, for me at least, like a really personal experience. Like when I write something, I want someone to read it and understand who I am as a person,
Hmm.
right? And so like that's the challenge now with comics for me is, can I get you to understand what's going on in my brain and how I feel about things and how I feel about life and love and death, um, through my work, right? So a lot of my work now is just, it's almost like meta biographical genre stuff, like the Automaton is clearly about me. Cyrus Perkins and the Honda Taxi Cab is about a near-death experience I had. The Loose End, which came out from Titan, just wrapped like 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago,
Hmm.
is about a bachelor party I went to in a foreign country and the paranoia and the fear of being somewhere where you're not familiar. Um, you know, all of this stuff is stuff that it just, like, my life informs my work,
Yeah.
and now that I'm not trying to put out 3 books a year, I can say, okay, well, what means the most to me? And how do I get my point across? And how do I get you to understand how I feel about, you know, um, the death of my uncle, the death of my best friend? Um, I haven't really tackled my dad's thing yet, but if you had met me like 2 months ago, dude, it would have been a completely different conversation. I would have been crying. I would have told you all about my books and I would have started crying. And I sort of love that. I sort of love that I can get to that point and be that real with people in person, describing my work, which is about me, you
Hmm.
know? Um, and I hope that doesn't come off as egotistical or whatever. It's just like I like to be a raw nerve. And when I
Hmm.
write, I scrape all the wounds and I'm like, how did that make me feel? Put it in the
Hmm.
book, you know?
No, I don't think that's egotistical at all. I'm the type of person who literally cries when I'm writing my script. I'm like, oh, this is so emotional, and I'm like actually bawling my eyes out. But then
Yeah.
like I do get embarrassed, so I'm crying, and when I finish the scene, I like look around, I'm like, oh my God, I hope no one just saw me and thought that I was going crazy. I was just writing a very emotional scene, you
Oh
know?
no, dude, I used to write, back when I was in college, um, I'd go to like the Denny's, a 24-hour diner, and you used to be able to smoke in there, and I would just be smoking and like typing and drinking coffee and smoking, looking all artsy and shit,
Uh-huh.
and then like and stuff. Sorry about that. And like I would be geeking out. Yeah, that was awesome. And like, or I'll be laughing or crying, and people think I look insane. But you know what? Wear it on your sleeve. You like this, it's your process, like
Mhm.
I love that. I love that your work can bring you to that. I like looking back at my old stuff because like we said, it's like a time capsule, right? And
Yeah.
I like transporting myself back to the time when I felt that way. Because like Cyrus Perkins with the Haunted Taxi Cab, I put that out 10 years ago.
Mm.
And I read it just recently. I was like, wow, whoever wrote this really, really went for it. Like, there's a lot of emotional tugging going on here.
Yourself.
I was like, oh, I wrote this. I was like, but that's kind of awesome to know that you're a completely different person now.
Hmm.
And to look back and be like, oh, wait, I was right there. That's where I was. It's all a time capsule. It's all great. And people that see you at conventions and pick up your book for the first time, they don't know anything about you. They don't know anything about your work. Something that came out 20 years ago could be brand new to them, right? So,
Yeah.
like, embrace that. Be proud of the work. Tell them where you were when you wrote it. Tell them where you were when you drew this. Oh, like I have a book about divorce that I want to do, and it's about sort of like my first wife,
Mm.
and like my wife, my forever wife, understands what it's like to for me what my process is. Usually, what I'll do is I'll obsess about stuff. She'll catch me just staring off into nothing, thinking about this book. Oh, gotta think about this book. Ooh, what about that detail? This detail. I don't write down an outline or anything. And then I'll book a trip for a week. I'll write an outline the week before, and then I spend the week writing. And I'm up from like 8 o'clock till like 2 o'clock, and then repeat it and just keep going. And I treat myself with video games or whatever, like, but it's
Yeah.
usually a glass of wine, you know, and I make my own meals and I just do that. And I come back and I have a fully done script, right? Because I've had time to just obsess about it and go crazy and scratch the wounds off. Um, this next book's about this first divorce. And my wife's like, you're gonna have to scratch all those wounds off. And I'm like, not really. I'm so past it that she's like, then why do it? And I'm like, oh, because I'm at the point now where I can make that really, really good. If I tried
Mhm.
to do that book when I was going through that, it would have been a hot mess, you
Yeah.
know, a hindsight of it all that I'm like, yeah, I could do this. Um, but she's like, I don't think you need to do it. You're done with those feelings. And I was like, well, maybe you're not done with my feelings. Like, I don't really know. But yeah, I mean, again, there's a lot of obsessing over it that needs to go on before I'm actually fully ready to do it, you know. And it's unfortunate because as a writer, you never want artists to be waiting for you. Like, you have the easy job. You're just setting the stage. You're just giving stage direction. You've got the dialogue, I could write a comic book in like a week. It takes like 3 weeks or more for a comic book artist to draw it, right? So the last thing you want is for them to be waiting for you to do your really, really little small part of it. Like, and so I have an artist waiting for me to work on this project and I just haven't had time. And I'm like, God, I really need to like buckle down, you
Me
know?
too. Yeah.
Yeah? Or
Yeah.
well,
I have like three artists, two line artists and one colorist. And I'm supposed to give my aligner this stuff, but I'm like, wait, it's like the sketch. I don't like the storyboard right now. You have to wait a little bit, you know?
okay. Okay. Yeah, it's tough though, right? Because you it's more than a production line, but
Mhm.
there are a lot of people involved, step by
Yeah.
step by step by step, right? The last thing you want to do is be the first person in the door and holding up the rest of the steps, you know? And so that's where I'm like, I've got to work on this. And as a writer, then too, that part of being a writer, especially when you're like an indie writer, is project management. Like
Hmm.
you have to make sure that everyone's working at the same pace or you're getting the same quality and, feedback without being a jerk. And, there's just a whole lot of that goes into that. And I don't think that people that are outside of the comics world get that either. That, yeah, I always say it. I'm like, whenever someone comes up, oh, did you draw this? I'm like, no, I'm just the writer. That sounds extremely dismissive of like my contribution to it because I think if I didn't create it or write it, it wouldn't exist.
Hmm.
And if I didn't manage the project, it wouldn't get done.
Exactly.
Right. So it's
Yes.
like writing comics is like being the boss, really,
Yeah.
what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and because originally it's your original vision, you can contribute or you could collaborate as much as you possibly can with your best friend or whatever,
Mhm.
right? But at the beginning of the day, like you came up with that one thing that made the whole thing work. Like the loose end, that book at Titan. I had the whole premise and first issue written before I found an artist.
Mhm.
And I specifically wanted to work with Travis, the artist of the book, because he lived 10 minutes away from me. And I was like, man, I want to have that feeling of when I was 15 years old and I was making comics with my friends and we could
Yeah.
go get coffee and I could go smoke and I could, I don't smoke anymore but because of the heart thing. But,
Yeah.
like to have that one-on-one interaction in person is like something that is very rare in comics today and something that I like really appreciate.
Yeah.
So that's sort of how the loose end came about. Um,
That's so nice. I want to do that someday too. Not right now. Everything is online for me,
yeah.
unfortunately.
Well, it's
And
hard too because like I work with a lot of people internationally too, right? Like the Automaton artist, his name is Santi Gishin. He um, lived in Argentina and we've worked together for 10 years. We've worked on 4 books
mm,
and over the last 10 years. And he would get my scripts. He would bring me the layouts. I'd be like, change that, fix that. That's perfect, 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 right? And then he would go and do it. And then I had the opportunity to meet him last year, and he was working on the automaton. And I was like, hey, your brother lives in Florida. You live in Argentina. Why don't you plan a trip to go to Florida during the convention, you can stay with your brother, hang out with me at the table, and we'll go to Disneyland because or Disney World because our book is sort of like a theme park murder mystery. I was like,
Yeah.
we'll write it off like research. So like he's
Two
texting
Disney.
me and he's coming and he gets off the bus
Uh-huh.
and I instantly see him and I like run up to him and I give him a big old hug because we've worked together for like 10 years.
Yeah.
I give him a hug. I'm like, it's so good to see you. And I pull away and he doesn't speak a word of English. Like I'm like, wait, we've been working together for 10 years and I didn't know you didn't speak English. So like the whole weekend we were doing the 90 Day Fiance thing where I would be like talking and be like, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah, yeah,
funny.
yeah. And we would just be passing the phone back and forth. And now I'm learning Spanish because I'm like, I feel like it's such a terrible thing that I didn't know that to not be able to communicate to him in his native tongue is, after all these years is kind of like crazy to me.
Yeah.
But we had a really great time. I mean, you know what I mean? Like we left
Mhm.
like closer than ever. But he's the guy waiting on a script for me right now. And I'm like, I don't have anything. What do I do? There's like this level of like partnership and responsibility to someone else that I feel like I need to adhere to or at least do my best to keep going the way we have it. Because, I don't want him to not have to not have work. I mean, he's getting work at other places too. Don't get me wrong, but
Yeah.
we have something that is super special too, and I want to keep that going. So, yeah, weird thing. I don't even know where that came from. I don't even know what the question was, but there you go.
That's so crazy though.
Yeah.
So
So who are you working with? Are you working with friends? Are you working with people that you met online and where are they from?
honestly, I'm working with a lot of people I met online. A lot of them are people from, do you know, it's very basic, but you know the site Upwork?
Yes.
Yes. So there's a lot of people who like really talented artists there. And basically what I do is I put like, oh, I'm looking for an artist who can color like this, and I show them my example of my art and like, can you imitate it? And then they kind of like we have like a test run like normal commission kind of thing. And then if I
Mhm.
think they present quite well on that commission, I offer them like I let them know in advance that this is for a position of coloring for my comics, but I
Yeah.
want to do a test run before, a paid test run. And then once they do the paid test run, then I offer them the more work if they do well. And then I found a couple artists like that.
Have you found any artists that on that were just unreliable? Because as artists,
No, yes, a
artists
lot.
are very unreliable, right? Because we're
Yeah,
all
I
dreamers. We're all dreaming about something else half the time.
yeah. No, they are very unreliable. Like, well, a lot of them. The ones I'm working with right now are very reliable, but the ones that some of them they either don't submit it on time, or they forget that they were working for me, and then I just have to find somebody else. So it's quite flaky, but when you do find a good person, you find a good person, and they stick with you for like literally forever.
Yep,
And
that's exactly me and Santiago for sure,
yeah,
right? Yeah,
and that's how it's been going. So
yeah.
Dave, what's one advice you give to the aspiring storytellers watching this right now?
Wow. Well, okay. Don't look at what's happening today and in the comics, and think that's what you need to do. Like whatever you're gonna write it because you're extremely interested in it and you're gonna put the work in like Mark Sable does, or you're going to feel it in your heart of hearts and you're going to do it like a Dave would, right? Not to say
Yeah.
that Mark doesn't do that, but just, you know, like you're not following other people is the worst thing that you can do. Blaze your
Mhm.
own trail. Don't worry about what everyone else is doing because if I was in bands a lot too, right? And like we're always like, oh, ska's real big right now, swing's real big right now. Of course, I'm talking about the 90s and the 2000s, right? So like we were trying to do that, right? But that's not what we were doing, and that's not the kind of style of music that we wanted to do. We were just like, ooh, let's get on the trend, right? But that trend dies overnight, right? So like if you're trying to capture what's happening today, by the time you get it done, that's passe. No one wants it anymore, right?
Yep.
Create something that you feel is original. And honestly, if you're going to be inspired by other people and other people's work, and I totally am, um, take what take take what you want from it in that, see what they did right? But figure out a way to improve it because that's the only way comics get better. That's the only way entertainment gets better. And right now, you're not in a position for anyone to tell you otherwise. So why not do what you want to do? Like when you get older and you start working with editors and whatnot, they'll be like, well, hey, we want to go this way with this character. Like a lot of like mainstream comics are now editorially driven, and that's cool because you have to keep that factory going. But if you want to be an original, an all time, great, then do you, and have the belief that that's the path. Because so many people stop before they even start, you know?
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
so beautifully said. I 100% agree with you.
Cool.
And where can our awesome listeners find your work?
Well, you can find my comic work at hellbrain.com. It's one word, just hellbrain. You can find me just at Dave Dwonch, like everywhere on the internet. I mean, probably places you don't want to be, you'll find it at Dave Dwonch. But yeah, I mean, honestly, like I'm a big Instagram person, and a lot of my stuff is comics. Sometimes it's about the comics I collect, sometimes it's about the comics I read, sometimes it's about my own comics, and a lot of times it's about like my cats. So I don't know. I mean, if you like cats, just find me on Instagram.
You click on the link in the description, guys. Clickety clickety, it's right here, I think. Yeah, pretty sure. It's down here.
It's down
Well,
there? All right. I
yeah.
love it.
Well, that's a wrap for today's episode of Podcast for Fun. Thank you so much, Dave, for joining us and sharing your incredible insights. I love talking about comics. It's so fun.
Me too.
And to our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with fellow storytelling enthusiasts. And if you have any questions or topics you'd like me to explore, you can drop them in the comments or connect with me on any of my social medias at Podcast for Fun. Until next time, keep creating, keep dreaming, and we'll see you on the next episode of Podcast for Fun.